Hello, my name is Dina Nielsen, and I am the Director of Student Services and Financial Aid at the Davis Technical College. This presentation is a report of the efforts we have made toward preventing sexual assault at our college and in our community. Our efforts were made possible by the TANF Sexual Violence Prevention Grant from the Utah Department of Health. We're so grateful for their assistance in starting this program on our campus. We are also partnered with the Utah Coalition Against Sexual Assault for this presentation, and we are grateful for their efforts throughout Utah and their support for the programs we have enacted. They are a great part of why we are experiencing success in our endeavors. A little about the Davis Technical College. We are a non-residential college in northern Utah, serving Davis and Morgan counties just north of Salt Lake City. On any given day, we have approximately 1,700 students on campus. Our college offers numerous technical programs, including information technology, digital media design, and architectural and engineering design, allied health programs such as practical nursing, emergency medical technician, and pharmacy technician, service professions such as cosmetology and culinary arts, and trade and apprenticeship programs such as welding technology, plumbing, and electrical apprenticeships. Please note that our name recently changed from Davis Applied Technology College, or DATC, to Davis Technical College, or Davis Tech. You will hear the names used interchangeably throughout the presentation, but we are now the Davis Technical College. The fact that Davis Tech does not have housing, Greek life, athletics, or much in the way of student activities is what makes the college different when getting messages out to our students. The students come to class and then leave. Of course, it makes things easier because we don't have students on campus, therefore assault doesn't happen very often on our campus. That said, they don't stay on campus for student events, so capturing attention is more challenging than a traditional college or university. However, we are committed to ending sexual assault in our community too, so we have accepted the challenge and strive to set the standard for our community and for other schools like ours. As part of our funding, we hosted the Safer Utah Conference in Davis County in December of 2016. We brought in Ann Munch, and if you have not seen her presentation on the unnamed conspirator, I highly recommend it as a way to open the conversation of rape culture in your area. She is dynamic and engaging about a really uncomfortable topic, but defines how our culture has evolved to accept rape as a victim's crime and identifies ways that we can change that mentality in our communities. We also had local speakers from various prevention organizations speak on topics such as bystander intervention, the hypersexualization of women in our society, sexual assault in regard to nonconforming gender and sexual identities, and trauma-informed care, among other topics. We invited other schools in the state and crisis care providers to this event. Because many of them are nonprofit, access to similar training is not always financially feasible. We tried to make this training very affordable with the support of our grant. The topics were selected carefully with our target audience in mind. And in retrospect, the conference was held at a time of year that was convenient for us, but coincided with finals week at the local colleges and universities. If we were to do this again, we would schedule it at a time that would allow the students from those schools to participate. We were able to make it affordable for them, but we didn't consider that, and of course, timing is everything. That was one of the important lessons we learned. The conference was very well received. We performed a pre- and post-survey to determine whether the message was delivered and received as intended. In both cases, the survey link was sent to all conference participants. I couldn't fit the entire report on a slide, but we used a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree. The blue line represents the pre-conference results, and the orange line represents post-conference results. Considering a bounded sample, we feel confident that the conference had a positive impact in regard to our goals. Self-awareness and confidence topics showed marked improvement, and confidence in our participants' ability and willingness to intervene was a driving force for this conference. Considering our target audience, I was not surprised that we didn't see as significant a change in the negative attitudes toward victims of sexual violence category, but we were pleased to see some growth in that area. These numbers were reported to the state as evidence of the impact we were having. The next topic is probably the one that I am most excited about in regard to our accomplishments. I am fortunate to work very closely with the instructors in our cosmetology, aesthetics, and nail technician programs. In a conversation with one instructor, we talked about how hard her first year as a cosmetologist was. She was 18 years old when she started working, and she told me that she cried as she drove home every night because of the terrible things she would see and hear during the day: bruises and cuts covered by hair, and confessions of sexual and domestic abuse. She believed that the reason for these disclosures was because of the intimate nature of the relationship between a cosmetologist and his or her clients. Touching another person is something that generally doesn't happen until much later in a relationship, but in this relationship it comes almost immediately. She also pointed out that in these types of controlling relationships, often the victim's intimate partner is so controlling that he or she will stay close to the victim to prevent disclosure. The instructor told me that it was not uncommon for clients to disclose violence or abuse while she was shampooing their hair, as that was the only time there was distance between the victim and the perpetrator. It was the only time that they had that level of privacy. Together we decided that we were doing our future professionals a disservice if we didn't prepare them for this heavy part of their career choice. We partnered with Safe Harbor, our local crisis center, to provide training on how to respond when violence is disclosed or noticed during a service. We also requested training for self-care for future professionals, understanding that this is a heavy load for someone to carry. To hold these seminars, we start by informing students well in advance of the topic to be covered. We recognize that some of our students may be dealing with incidents in their own pasts. We were concerned that the seminar would create triggers for anyone with a past, so we provided as much advance notice as possible, as well as an option to sit out if the student chose. Safe Harbor also provided professionals for anyone who experienced triggers during the seminar. It is important to note that we absolutely experienced some of these triggers. In one group of 12 young women, a debriefing session revealed that 10 of the 12 participants had experienced some form of sexual assault in their lives. We continued to invite the crisis counselors to these sessions for this reason, and we are very intentional when informing students of the topic. Our goal is to open a dialogue with the future professionals so that they are prepared when they start their careers. Additionally, we developed and distributed lip balms for the students to provide to their clients that have our logo on them and, more discreetly, information on Safe Harbor as part of the label. We will start providing the training in lip balms to local salons, thereby increasing our sphere of influence in this area. It must be noted that we started these seminars prior to being awarded the grant and intend to continue these seminars after the grant is exhausted, but the seminars have been positively received by students and staff. We are excited to start sharing them with our local business and industry partners this fall. Additionally, we have legislative partners and are hoping to introduce legislation that would make similar training mandatory for all cosmetology, aesthetics, and nails professionals in the state of Utah under the Division of Occupational and Professional Licensure in the 2018 legislative session. This would be similar to the law passed in Illinois in 2016 and enacted in January of 2017. I invite you to read this newspaper article written about our efforts in the Ogden Standard Examiner last winter. As you will read, our students expressed positive feedback, not only in dealing with their personal journeys in this area, but in feeling prepared to intervene with future clients when they feel moved to do so. We have had students return with stories of how the training was put into action with their clients, and we feel more and more confident that this is a program that is essential for all beauty professionals. We recognize that this is a reactive program more than it is preventative, but our hope is that if it doesn't prevent the first incident of sexual or domestic violence, it will serve to intervene before there is a second incident. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so Davis Tech planned weekly events to engage and inform faculty, staff, and students. To start, we created a survey to determine the campus climate in regard to sexual assault and sexual violence. Using a 5-point Likert scale, with 1 being strongly disagree and 5 being strongly agree, we asked the questions listed here. As you can see, we had a sample size of 136, which is small but for our campus viable. Our intent was to determine how our campus constituents view the need for sexual assault awareness and prevention in our area, how they rate their own knowledge of sexual assault, and how to identify and report sexual assault. These questions are the same as those used in our Safer Utah conference and were developed in part through samples provided by various sources, including EverFi software, a program that is used by many campuses across the country to determine levels of sexual assault awareness and attitudes locally. The responses were collected through an online survey as well as a paper and pencil survey, both available to faculty, staff, and students over a 1-week period prior to the beginning of Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April. We launched Sexual Assault Awareness Month with a Wellness Day. We announced the It's On Us campaign and unveiled our It's On Us video, which you will see in a moment. It's On Us is an initiative to address sexual assault on college campuses. It's described on the It's On Us website as a cultural movement aimed at fundamentally shifting the way we think and talk about sexual assault. The website www.itsonus.org has information and resources for schools. We couch the topic with general well-being in an effort to include everyone, even those who may not be comfortable with the topic. In addition to introducing the topic of sexual assault prevention and why it's important to our campus, we invited a local fitness center to perform health assessments for staff while we hosted a 5K walk around campus. The 5K was supposed to be outside, but the weather didn't cooperate, so we set it up inside and had informational posters along the route which wound through the hallways of campus. You will see examples of these posters as we move forward. We also set up a table in the student commons area during the lunch hour to provide information to students and staff. We invited people to commit what they would do to end sexual assault in our community and sign a poster committing to doing their part. We handed out informational flyers and had one-on-one discussions with individuals who expressed interest, following up with a challenge to become part of the solution in whatever way they could, recognizing that this is a challenging topic for some. We put flyers regarding sexual assault myths in every restroom stall, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. We hosted a screening of the movie It Happened Here, and we also hosted the In Their Shoes event, both of which we will cover in more detail shortly. This is a picture of all the participants of the It's On Us campaign on the first day of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Each participant completed our pre-survey in order to get a t-shirt. At the end of the online survey, a message popped up that said thank you and asked them to come to my office with a code word to claim their t-shirt. If they took the paper and pencil survey, the same code word was given to them and they deposited the survey into the box on the table. T-shirts were available to the students as well, but in these pictures I have chosen to reflect only staff. I was surprised at how many men participated and came to tell me about friends and loved ones who had been victims. They were as invested in the topic as the women, for which I am grateful. I would be interested to know how events like this are received by men on other campuses. My perception was that it would be more of a sense of a women's issue, but that was definitely not the case on our campus. I asked a couple of the men, those with whom I have a closer relationship, if they felt that anything we were doing felt like man-bashing to them. It is very important to me that we recognize that most men are not perpetrators, and we are relying on the support from the good men in our community to help educate men who may have violent tendencies. The men I asked reported that they felt it was a critical topic for everyone. Delivery of the message is crucial, and we try to be very intentional about not lumping all men into a pile of perpetrators, recognizing that not all perpetrators are men and not all men are perpetrators. As one of them pointed out, the perpetrators are more likely to be men, so it is natural and responsible to target the message that way. Those are his exact words, and I think it is important qualitative data for us to consider as we continue our efforts. We did, however, make a concerted effort to reflect that men can just as easily be targeted by either gender, and our efforts target all sexual assault, not just sexual assault perpetrated against women. Here is one of the many posters we created. All of the information was gathered from the State Department of Health. I think it is helpful for some to see the amount of money that is spent on prevention versus trying and incarcerating perpetrators. We tried to play as many cards as possible, the emotional card, of course, but the resources card was very useful in capturing the attention of people who were otherwise not invested in the issue. These posters were very well received by students and staff. We received many comments about how students felt it was needed and how they felt informed, and it made Davis Tech feel like a real college. And I hope I was able to convey with my voice the words that are in quotation marks. Those are the words used by our students, and I think it is pertinent to the difference between a traditional campus and a campus like ours. Again, this is very important qualitative data for us to consider as we move forward. This is a copy of the Sexual Assault Myths flyer that we posted in the restroom stalls. All of the flyers were left alone except this one in a stall in one of the men's rooms. I hope you can see it, but the student had definite feelings about the topic. I assume it was a man who responded because it was found in a men's room, so take the gender as a likely inference, but it is my opinion and not verified. The student cites a few cases where sexual assault is found to be falsely reported and goes on to say that what a person is wearing and whether they are intoxicated does cause sexual assault. and he implies that it is warranted if the victim, quote, goes to a party and gets drunk and is dressed like a slut. That is a direct quote from his comments. My initial reaction was anger, but I was wise enough to recognize it for what it was and cool down before I responded. I replaced this flyer with a simple note that said, "While it is true that false reports ruin lives, the fact remains that there are very few false reports on an already underreported crime, and the accurate reports, as well as the actions that go unreported, ruin far more lives. Help us by being part of the solution. Remind men that no matter what a person is wearing or doing, if they don't give consent, it is rape." End of quote. I tried to keep it simple. No response was written to my response, and eventually it was taken down. But this response formed our objectives for the second year of our grant. A large portion of what we spend in the coming year will be geared toward men training men. We will cover that more in depth when we get to the future projects part of this presentation. My hope, however, is that we will reach far more male students. My impression of this response is that it was written by someone who had been accused or knew someone who had been accused. I hope this person is able to be introspective and see that our efforts are intended to stop actions and behaviors that lead to sexual assault, but also to teach behaviors that leave no room for assumption that may create opportunity for false reports. I am trying to not make too many assumptions about my reaction, but I must admit that my first reaction was less charitable. I had to remind myself and the others working on this project that our role is to include and inform. Throughout this project, I try to convey that we do not believe that men are the enemy. On the contrary, men are the best way to resolve this. These are pictures of some of our tabling efforts. You can see that we had staff and students write their pledges on whiteboards and pose with them. These pictures were posted to the Davis Tech Facebook page throughout April to show continuous effort and garner support. Additionally, you can see that we had people sign the commitment poster pledging to 1. Recognize that non-consensual sex is sexual assault. 2. Identify situations in which sexual assault may occur. 3. To intervene in situations where consent is not or has not or cannot be given. And 4. To create an environment in which sexual assault is unacceptable and survivors are supported. These are the 4 standards that are established by the It's On Us campaign. Again, we had a very positive response to this project. We moved these items around to every event we did to continue to gain pledge signatures and pictures. This is our It's On Us video. All participants are either students or staff at Davis Tech. You can find it on YouTube by doing a search for Davis Tech It's On Us. We have had almost 2,600 views so far, and we continue to promote it where we can. The instructors who responded to our request for participants all reported knowing someone who has been perpetrated against, and I believe their passion for the topic comes across in this video.
Together, we can make a difference. It's on us.
Sexual assault is any type of sexual contact or behavior without explicit consent of the recipient. If a sexual assault victim tells you their story, what will you say?
I pledge to start by believing.
The perpetrator is not usually a thug hiding in a dark alley or behind a bush. It's someone the victim knows and trusts.
A relative,
a neighbor,
a coworker, a partner,
A friend.
If you hear a demeaning joke or inappropriate locker room talk, what will you do?
I pledge to speak up.
I will let others know degrading women isn't funny.
Less than 3% of sex offenders are held accountable for their crimes. When someone reports an incident, people sometimes blame the victim.
What were you wearing?
Why were you at that party?
You shouldn't have been drinking. None of that matters. Assault is assault, period.
I pledge to listen without judgment.
12% of Utah victims report the crime to the police. Victims have different reasons for not reporting.
They were too young to understand.
They were embarrassed.
They didn't think the incident was that serious.
They didn't think the police could help.
If someone confides in you, how will you help?
I will let my friend know where to get help when he or she is ready.
In Utah, among victims over the age of 16, the victim was under the influence of alcohol in more than 27% of the cases.
I pledge to make sure the people around me get home safely.
I will ask my friends to help intervene.
Sexual assault is not a woman's issue.
It's a human issue.
It's a human issue.
It's up to us to stop sexual abuse.
Together, we can make a difference. It's on us.
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 Another activity we hosted was a visit from the Utah Department of Health Men's Engagement Specialist, Marty Liccardo. He provided an insightful bystander intervention training from a men's perspective, looking at the gender biases that encourage rape culture and how we can mitigate them and reframe how society views gender roles and sexuality. It is important that we remove as many of these cues as possible from our campuses. Marty's presentation could be, and I hope will be, an entire webinar on its own, but I encourage everyone to participate in a session like this. We were able to define so many ways that the genders are defined differently, typically giving more power to men and portraying women as soft or weak, including the denigrating terms that are used for men who are perceived as soft or weak, usually feminine terms. I wish I could better describe what I learned from this, but it really is something that you just have to experience. I would encourage participants in this presentation to reach out to local crisis centers or health departments to seek similar training on men's bystander intervention. This is another training that is held frequently throughout the year, so there are opportunities to participate. It is always eye-opening to me to see how many gender biases I still carry, even after years in this kind of work. I learn something new each time I participate. This poster is one of those displayed during the 5K walk and throughout April. We hosted a screening of the movie It Happened Here, which talks about rape culture on college campuses across the nation. Specifically, it follows the journey of 5 reporters, what happened to them, how their reports were received by their campuses, and how they achieved resolution and changed the campus cultures through activism and advocacy. I strongly recommend this film for campuses, especially those with housing and student activities. The women featured in this film have been instrumental in changing how campuses handle reports of sexual assault and the preventative measures that are taking place nationwide. This film is available at a very low cost. For $100, we were able to share it with our participants. We had both men and women in the audience, and again, received very positive feedback from those who attended. Lastly, in June, we hosted an event called In Their Shoes. This is an interactive event that challenges how gender bias and sexual assault play into the experience of a teen. It is engaging because it requires participation. Participants become one of 16 characters based on the experiences of real teens, including sexting, pregnancy, homophobia, and stalking. They make choices about their relationships and move through the scenario by reading about interactions with their dating partner, family, friends, counselors, police, and others. It is also available for only $150 for schools who want to use it. We had 30 participants. From this, we learned that it is important to hold our programs during the student lunch hour to increase student participation. Most of our participants were instructors. It was interesting to watch how our younger participants, the students, responded to the scenarios versus how adults, particularly those who were parents, responded. It created an interesting and informative dialogue. The poster is another one that we displayed during the 5K and throughout April. We ended up with about a dozen posters similar to this, all done in teal, which is the color for sexual assault awareness. I'm happy to provide the templates and examples of each of them to anyone who is interested. This is a screenshot of the Safer Utah website we developed with assistance from our grant. We were able to hire 2 interns from a local university to do the design work and gather the information. We fact-checked everything, and then it was given to the Davis Tech web developer to be sure the look and feel was consistent with the Davis Tech theme. You can see that we broke the themes into tabs for general information, preventing sexual assault, how to report, which is specific to our campus policies and procedures, frequently asked questions, and resources. Having looked at several of these websites from around the country, I'm very proud of this page and the interns who developed it. I would invite you to explore it thoroughly at www.davistech.edu/saferutah. The page continues to evolve. The 2 interns who developed it have become so invested in the project that they are now volunteering for the Utah Cares Coalition. Much of their work fits into both places, so when they discover information that works for one, they share it in both. Alexandra Petrovic and Desiree Sandoval deserve recognition and credit for their work on this. Additionally, Alex has created a how-to manual including scholarly resources, templates, and other ideas so that other schools can learn from and build upon what we have already done. At the end of April, we conducted a follow-up survey to determine whether we made a difference in our campus climate. The limitation of this survey is that we have no way of knowing whether we captured the same audience as the first survey. You can see that we got significantly fewer responses, but to keep anonymity, we didn't require any indicator as to whether we got the same sample group. In retrospect and for future reference, we will add a question to the follow-up survey asking whether the participant filled out the pre-survey as well, but you can see that our post-survey scores are here. Based on the information we have, you can see that the averages did improve from the pre-survey to the post-survey. Again, this is incomplete data, but based on the comments we received, I can qualitatively say that we had a positive impact. The results under attitudes towards sexual violence reflect similar findings and give us areas to work on in the coming year, specifically attitudes toward the statements, "The people are only victims if they choose to be," "The victim's personality often leads to the abuse," and "The act of sexually abusing others is primarily due to a medical or psychological issue." These results are at the forefront of our mind as we develop projects for the coming year. It would be interesting to see similar results for other types of colleges in the same area or from the same type of college in other areas in the country and compare the similarities. There is a lot of training that is being invented from the ground up again and again, and I believe that much of it could be streamlined. It would be interesting to see similar results for other types of colleges in the same area or the same type of college in other areas in the nation to compare similarities. There is a lot of training that is being invented from the ground up again and again, and I believe that so much of it could be streamlined. So if you complete similar surveys and have done preventative work in your area, I would be interested to hear from you and to see your results and discuss how our findings may inform future training and efforts. We were granted a second year of the TANF funding that allows us to provide these services, so we have refocused our efforts and set goals for these projects. First, we will use the grant to provide similar training opportunities to our sister campuses around the state. We have learned so much through this experience. Rather than having others reinvent the wheel, we will be sharing what we have developed and learned with other campuses so that the message is spread across the state. In September, we will host a training for our beauty industry professionals. We will offer the same training to professionals in our community that we give to our students, to local cosmetologists, estheticians, and nail technicians. As I said previously, we are hoping to have legislation passed in the next session that will make this a requirement for all beauty professionals. To that end, we are working toward getting these sessions approved for continuing education credits so that their training will count toward that law if or when it is enacted. But this will obviously take a little time, and it will not be in place for our first training, which will be in September 2017. I do believe our partners will find it useful anyway. Last year, we hosted our own conference. Moving forward, we feel our money will be better spent supporting the state Title IX conference held in March. We intend to be involved as much as possible and contribute to the larger initiative rather than dividing the audience. No regrets from last year, but a better opportunity for our funding sources to go further. Lastly, we are excited to continue with our outreach to men. The male instructors we used last year have agreed to continue with our project. We are collecting unscripted interviews with our participants, although we give them notes in advance so they can think about their audience. The questions are: why is prevention of sexual assault important to our community, to our families, and to our colleagues? Why should prevention of sexual assault be important to men? And what would you like your students to learn from you about this topic? Additionally, we set the tone for the videos by reminding the interviewees that we recognize that most men are good men. Very few actually perpetrate these crimes. but those that do tend to repeat until caught and sometimes even after being caught. The point of these videos is not to make men feel guilty for being men. Rather, it is to enlist the good men in our programs to intervene and be a part of the solution, to recognize when they see or hear other men who may be predatory in nature and know how to correct it, and to set the example for how good men behave in regard to these topics. These videos are not to be an attack on men or masculinity. They are educational in nature and designed to inform and influence, never to berate. The first of these videos is already shot and is in editing now. We will work to get the other instructors on video as soon as possible and have these videos in our social media settings, on our Safer Utah website, and on TV monitors around campus throughout the year. Thank you for the time that you have given to this presentation. I hope it's been informative and useful. My contact information is listed here, and I would invite any interested party to reach out to me with questions about our programs. Davis Technical College believes in creating a safe environment everywhere, so we are happy to share our templates for the items we have developed in this program. Have a safe and wonderful day.